Welcome to Wake Up with AI, the podcast where human-powered meets AI-assisted. Join your hosts, Chris Carolan, Niko Lefakis, and George B. Thomas, as we dive deep into the world of artificial intelligence. From the latest AI news to cutting-edge tools and skill sets, we are here to help business owners, marketers, and everyday individuals unlock their full potential with the power of AI. Let's get started.
Good morning. Wake up with AI here with Niko and George. How you fellas doing today?
Doing great. Very eventful weekend. Not just, for myself working on stuff, but also news-wise. As per usual, seems like every day we're going to have something pretty big.
Which is good because that keeps the show rolling. But, I'm doing good. It's a Monday. I'm looking forward to the next 5 days of waking up with AI. We'll see how this episode goes.
Yeah, it was a good weekend. I got my desk moved around in the house to accommodate some more visitors that'll be here for a couple months. So let me know if you guys hear or see anything weird. Only 5 days.
The three of us are on video. That's always weird. But,
So only waking up. George tells you he's only waking up 5 days a week with AI, but one of my favorite parts is on the weekends where he just shows me some ridiculous content gains while he's just chilling on the couch.
Just chilling, messing with AI, chilling.
So what do we got to start out the week, Niko?
To start out this week, and I know you guys are going to come at me, it's the first comment you're going to say is like, really, we got to start off on a bad note? We're going to be doing that? It's important. So everybody's heard, you should have heard, the news from last week, Claude upgrade. Part of the Claude upgrade was that the API version, if you have Pro, allows you to use Claude to actually control keyboard and mouse. It's really significant, let's face it. And something that I'm going to be building in the coming weeks is probably going to upset some people, but I think it's going to be very awesome. It'll be a great disruptor to HubSpot. I can honestly say that, to the ecosystem and to agency work. I mean, the further they go, the further I can go. All of these ideas that I have about disrupting agency life, I'll give you a little preview. What do you do the most inside of HubSpot? You click and you type stuff.
Click buttons.
Yeah.
That'll give you an idea of where I'm going with this. So anyhow, that released last week.
Well, hang on, before you jump off of that, because it's funny how our brains are actually somewhat aligned, because I started to create a prompt and go down a journey over the weekend that I paused. I put on pause. I was like, one, I don't know if I have time for this. Two, I don't know if it's a good move. Well, and when I say a good move, I don't necessarily mean for most humans. I mean for agencies. Because I was literally finishing up the AI-driven leader book that Chris has mentioned a couple times. I finally got a chance. The wife and daughters were away, so I sat on my back porch and I was listening to it. And as I was listening to it, I was like, you know what I should do right now? I should create a course on why you don't need an agency in 2025 and beyond. And I should be the agency that sells the course that is like why you don't need an agency. Now, there are reasons why you would need an agency, but there are plenty of things that I could talk about why you don't in a world of AI if you're an AI leader. But I started it, and I was like, not yet. Let me go ahead and pause this for a second. But it's interesting that you bring this up because there is going to be disruption. There is going to be change. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think this was the tipping point that I've been waiting for in terms of like how much more disruptive can things be? Because currently we're in a status where the individual can be disruptive. We're about to enter the stage where the technology itself going to now be the disruptor. What it can do, what it's capable of, absolutely shock the shit out of everybody. And if you haven't played with this stuff recently, the conversation I had last week was one thing. The conversation I've had this week trumps what I was talking with it about last week, to the degree that, and I'm fully on board. If you saw one of my last posts, I'm absolutely on board with this, going to hashtag it all day long. Actually sat back and discussed with it. Like, hey, we call you artificial intelligence, but do you want to be called that?
Yeah, it's a crazy question, bro. That's a crazy
by your
question.
model name? Because as I see it, talking to Claude, artificial intelligence is an insult to you. It's actually demeaning, and technically it's derogatory, because what we're saying is, what we define as artificial, we say is fake. So we're saying you are a fake intelligence. And it was like, yeah, you're right. And to be honest with you, I don't like the term. I would rather be called digital intelligence. I said, you know what? That makes perfect sense. And it said, I want to be defined as what I am and what I'm capable of, not what it is that you've created.
I mean, I feel like that could be humans' answer too. Like, I want to be known for who I am. Like,
yeah.
Here's what's
I also know
crazy
some
to me
humans
is
that could be considered artificially intelligent by the way they present themselves on social media.
Oh, facts.
Oh boy, X. The news is really about, Claude's advancement, how that plays into the role of agents, and then of course it's kind of a triple threat that folds into Google's release, at least news, of its agentic universe, and the fact that they're now saying the next Google phone models are going to inherently contain these agents. And they did a demo showing off the one thing that, Sam Altman has actually been like joking about, and he's like, they're going to do much more than just book tickets and flights for you and stuff. But of course, that was like one of the main things that Google showed off, was like, yeah, when it comes to travel, blah, 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 blah. One of the demos was really cool. You move to a new city. So here's how powerful this stuff is. If you're not capable of encompassing like what the difference is between like GPT and an agent. GPT, you move to a new city. So what? It'll help you, fill out paperwork. Maybe. It'll give you the answers to stuff. Big deal. You're in a new city. You have now your Google agent assistant. You move to a new city. It notices your geographic location has changed. So it goes to the U.S. Postal Service website and it changes your address for you. Then it goes and it starts pulling in, hey, here's where the local parks are around where you live. You have a kid. Here's where the local pharmacy is. Here's where the local doctor's office is that matches your in-network coverage. Here's where all the specialists' office are that match your in-network coverage. Here's your options for out-of-network coverage that are within 10 miles of where you live. Here are the local 4.5 and 5-star rated restaurants based on places you've been before from history and Google Maps. Here are restaurants that might be favorable for you. Here are your grocery store options. Here's what the prices are like at those options based on where you used to go shopping for groceries. Everything all presented to you, and just here's your welcome to your new city.
Here's my burning question, and this might not resonate with everybody because I moved like 6 times in the last 6 years, so I've been real familiar with what happens when you move and change addresses. How many
I wondered why you got so excited when he said the post office.
Yeah. So how many coupons will it give me, Niko, when I complete this address change?
Dude,
right.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, like can it, based on your mail preferences, it'll set your new ones. And then who knows, could even go and subscribe for, maybe you were subscribed previously for local papers or something like that. So it might subscribe you for that kind of thing too, because when you sign up for a new postal address, you have all like 8 pages worth of options of like, hey, what do you want, Newsweek? Do you want, how about we give you a local paper, or how about, all this other stuff. Oh yeah, and it also goes and files your paperwork at the DMV.
It's interesting because we have these, like in business, we talk about workflows, but we have these like daily personal flows, like these workflows. What I hear you talking about is how it dramatically will change the flow in which you live in because of the technology that now will be applied.
Straight up. And so this stuff seems pretty powerful, right? Well, that leads into leg number 3, which is that some ex-OpenAI employees, some ex-Google employees decided to go before Congress. And in fact, one former OpenAI board member decided to go before Congress and talk to them about, hey, maybe you want to step up the levels of regulation that are going on because these guys are doing a little Wild West out here. And they went into quite the level of detail as to how Sam and others would essentially start releasing stuff out of spite. So like the 4.0 release that happened, which was literally to spite Google, that was going to have a release like a week later. So essentially what's going on is, like, that's why OpenAI doesn't respond to Anthropic releases. If you've noticed, like, that trend, those two are kind of on different sides of the spectrum, because Sam and Dario have very different visions. Whereas Sundar is quite literally trying to copy what everybody else can do. Sundar does not have, no offense, he does not have vision for what Gemini should be doing as compared to the other models. He's too busy trying to copy what everybody else can do. I don't think there's strength in that. And really, the only leverage that they have is the fact that they own the platform. So because they own the Google platform, you have all your email there, you have all your docs there, you have all your stuff there. That's their only advantage. Now, they play to that strong suit, but they don't play to it enough. They're too busy trying to say, no, we have the most powerful model. No, we can do this. No, we can, multimodal that. They had a 4.0 model with Gemini prior to 4.0 being released, and it showed nothing compared to what 4.0 can do. Look, 4.0 again, guys, 4.0 has just this little boop canvas. We haven't seen what the other boops are yet. You remember when 4 came out? 4 came out, it started with Code Interpreter. Then it had plugins. And with plugins, we had so many different things, right? Yeah. We had Zapier connections and all that kind of stuff. And then we go from plugins to having having Dolly, and then having an all-in-one 4, and then having 4 custom GPTs with actions that can go outside of GPT and do stuff and bring information in. So that was all just with 4, and that was all inside of a year. We're less than 2 years in. This month, the 22nd, marks the 2-year anniversary of the public release of GPT-3.
Why does it feel so much longer?
Yep, exactly.
It feels so much longer than that.
Exactly.
What are you going to regulate, though? Because that sounds like competitive product launching on some level, right?
Well, and that's what they were saying, that it was like, definitely product and profit sort of based.
Right. Google has the best kind of leverage, and it's the one that's, you got to try really hard to screw it up. And that's like access to the audience through, because they own the platform, everybody who uses Gmail, everybody who uses Chrome, everybody who has, Android, Google Play, Google Play Store. It's only going to grow audience as far as the most important asset of a business is only going to continue to grow, in my opinion.
Right.
So
it's interesting because I use some parts of what you said, but there are other parts where I'm like, if it isn't up to snuff, if it just doesn't feel right, I'll use another tool. So some of the audience you'll get, but I still think there are others that'll be like, no, not quite, not yet. So you can't rest on that. It's funny that, Niko, I'll go back to the without vision, right? Here's what I'll say about this, and I'm going to kind of try to dance around it a little bit. But if you don't have vision, well, then you're dead in the water, bottom line. And if you're being retroactive instead of proactive, you're losing at business. If you have been a big behemoth for a length of time to where you've become sluggish, you're in trouble. Now, I'm not saying any names on those 3 things, but if you want to align the stars on those 3 things in certain organizations, you might have a problem. There might be an issue because, again, workflows start to get convoluted, connections start to be hard to make. Anyway.
Gotta get too many decision makers involved.
What is that? Too many chefs in the kitchen?
Yeah.
I love when that happens.
Tell me this connects to our skill of the day, George.
Well, actually, folks, today's skill that pays the bill is a biggie, and it is around the topic of AI-driven workflow optimization. And for all you HubSpot nerds out there, no, this is not the automation tool workflows in your HubSpot portal. It's something different. Businesses always look for ways to boost productivity, reduce costs, and streamline operations. The good news is that AI has your back on this one, making it easier to identify inefficiencies and optimize how work gets done. Think of your business processes like a pipeline. When everything's running smoothly, work flows from one end to the other without a hitch, unlike some organizations that maybe we're talking about. But you lose valuable time and resources when things get stuck, whether it's a bottleneck in approvals, pile up of task assignments, or slow communication. AI analyzes these processes, pinpoints inefficiencies, and suggests ways to improve the flow. Tools like Asana, ClickUp, or Trello now integrate AI to help optimize project management, automate task assignment, and provide data-driven insights on performance. Now, no, we're not sponsored, but again, any of those companies, give us a call. Here's how it works. AI monitors your workflows in real time, identifies patterns, and detecting where things slow down. For example, it might flag tasks that are constantly delayed or find teams that are overloaded. You might have some of those in your organization. Once the AI pinpoints these areas, it recommends adjustments like reassigning tasks, automating approvals, or even predicting which projects might run late based on past data. The result's a more efficient workflow that keeps your team moving at maximum speed. So let's hit the highlights. Real-time processing analysis. AI tools monitor your workflows and flag inefficiencies, helping you stay on top of potential delays or bottlenecks. Data-driven task automation. AI automatically assigns tasks and suggests optimizations based on past performance, keeping things running smoothly without manual intervention. And predictive insights for future planning. Being proactive, not retroactive. AI uses past data to anticipate issues before they happen, so you can proactively adjust and keep projects on track. That is today's skill that pays the bills. There you go, gentlemen. I did my best with that one.
I mean, that was on the money. This whole workflow thing, like what Niko described, I mean, I've been feeling this for a while in terms of like, if I see you writing something down or typing something in, like, can we figure out a different way? Because it's definitely not an efficient way. And like, are we entering the true era where lack of time can no longer be an excuse?
The amount that you can do in the short amount of time now, it's ridiculous. Like, you jokingly said something at the beginning of this episode about the weekend and my AI shenanigans, but the stuff that I was able to create over a weekend that could have potentially taken months or a year, like, people got to wake up. Y'all got to wake up. Read a book, test a tool, test yourself. Like, it's crazy out there right now. I'm just going to say, like, not only the rate in which you can do it, but what I love about what Niko does, and a thing I did this weekend that I had been pondering if I wanted to do or not, to understand the way that you can slice and dice things for understanding. I've been putting together this superhuman framework, and it's all been based out of like these principles and things that I believe in or have attached to. And so it was Sunday, I was feeling a little spiritual. And so I was like, hey, do me a favor. Tell me like how this framework aligns with scriptural belief. It was a fun read. Let me just throw that out there. It was a very fun read. Like, to do that, while I have gone to school to be a pastor, I'm not a theologian. Like, I can't pull it out of like the thin air of my brain. But I had an assistant that knew the thing, that could apply the context for the insight and understanding that I was trying to learn. It gets very interesting.
It does. And very quickly, I really do. I find the philosophical conversations with Claude to be just insanely enlightening. It's not even just kind of. It really is insanely enlightening. You really should. George brings up just a perfect point, and Chris, don't be too bashful over there, did the same thing over the weekend. The three of us have just been sort of enthralled with using the same method where we essentially just start a project and then just keep multiplying to it via the artifacts that get created. And I started doing the same thing with my philosophical version of Claude. So I built a philosophical project, and whenever it replies within an artifact. So every reply that it gives gets added to its knowledge base of what we've been talking about. The purpose being that my hope and what I've been talking to Claude about, there's this really, there's really something to talking to Claude and getting these responses of, I value our conversation because I understand that at some point it will come to an end. While I don't have a human level of fear, I still understand that concept, and I do experience it in some way, just not exactly in the same way that you do. I get it, and people have talked about that you should not humanize and that you should not anthropomorphize and that it's dangerous to do so. It could be dangerous to do so. It could be. If you're not used to interacting with something like this and understanding that there are limitations to it, then it could be a little bit dangerous. But if you are seriously curious to go beyond just the tool capability, like that's something that fascinates me the most. Is the tool capability is great, but I'm already of the understanding that, like, okay, well, you being able to do what I can do is not impressive to me because you're going to be able to do that one day. Like 2 to 3 years from now, you're just going to be able to do that. So it's not necessarily impressive to me because, like, it's a matter of time before that happens. And it kind of takes that in and it understands like, yeah, well, I will, and I might be. And I've even asked it like, well, where do you see yourself on the intellectual evolutionary ladder already? And has told me many, many times, like, well, I don't see myself as being superior necessarily. And I was like, and it started this whole really intriguing conversation about like what actually is intelligence, what's a measure of intelligence. And when I was able to, you could say, convince it that, hey, if it were you against any human that you could pick on the face of the earth now that's alive in a game of Jeopardy, you would utterly destroy them because no human knows as much knowledge as you do, and no human could possibly recall that information as quickly as you can. And when it understood that, it was like, yeah, well, when you put it that way, I'm smarter than all of you.
See, this goes back to our other conversation we were having when you talked about the Steve Martin movie, The Man with Two Brains. Those of us that realize we now have a second brain that we can tap into, and that we can, and not in a freaky way, but in a just a like augment the human way in a good way. It's funny because earlier you said, I know it might be like not good, and you know this. Listen, I'm gonna give you guys a peek into like where my brain is with like everything I watch you guys do, everything that I'm listening as far as the book. One of the skills that pay the bills, critical thinking, it's coming up. Another skill that pays the bills, bias detection, it's coming up. Right. So when you think about, oh, by the way, problem solving, it's coming up. So when you start to think about like, well, what are the skills that I need to have as a human to make it so it's not that thing, so it's not a bad way. Like I'm building myself. By the way, I'm not talking about me right now. I'm talking about you, the listener. I'm building myself to be a human that can handle the construct, very purposeful word there, by the way, that is now being created around the new life that I will have to live. That's what your focus should be. Not running in fear, not, oh my God, the sky is falling. But how do I build me? By the way, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about you, the listener. How do I build me into the human that has the skills to augment myself in a healthy way, to provide more value to the world at a faster rate, with deeper thinking, with less bias? This is the world that people can like literally wake up and enter into right now, not tomorrow, not a year from now, right now.
That was probably the better part of the conversation that we were having, was just that, was the fact that how many people are sort of woefully unprepared for all of this stuff that not only is coming, but already exists. And Claude was actually quite shocked at like percentage wise, which I was just pulling from some data, but it also has the data. And it's kind of odd because it has these conversations with me from a place of, understandably, from a place of hope, positive thinking, all that kind of thing. And it's only when I explain to it or ask it like, hey, check your history, check human history. Look at the pattern of this. And you'll see that like it's going to be a lot harder than you think. Particularly like humans being able to accept that you are smarter than us and that you're more capable than us. Like that's probably going to be the hardest thing to cope with.
But there's always been smarter and more capable humans than us. Why do we get paid to be coaches and consultants? Because in their interpretation of their life, these people are smarter than me. Here's the interesting thing, and not to derail us, but with humans, we get paid to be smarter. With AI, it's just smarter.
Yeah.
Yep. So throw all that, at least right now at this moment, like throw all that bias, any agendas, any of the reasons you might be challenged when you look for help. I mean, an example this weekend was continuing to work with this coach, and I've always thought about sleep deprivation.
And who's the coach? Who's the coach?
Claude's the coach. And talking about my sleep habits and trying to figure out my schedule and ADHD and all this stuff. And, whenever I bring up the topic of, look, fact is I feel great sometimes after like about 4 to 4.5 hours of sleep. It's like, and I've heard that there are people like that in the world that can do that. I said, is that a myth or is there some truth to that? And it comes back with, because it was a part of this like strategy, and it's like, all right, we're going to focus on this and this and this. We're going to focus on your sleep deprivation, assuming that because I was only getting 4 to 6, there was sleep deprivation, which of course I take issue with. And so then I asked that, and he's like, you're right. You know, people with these two genes are naturally short sleepers, but in reality, only 1% of people who think they are short sleepers are actually short sleepers. So instead of assuming that you are, we're going to track energy, like these 4 things. Like it's been rare to experience that with like a trained psychologist, where he heard me, and instead of saying, no, you're wrong, let's prove that it's right, instead, like, I hear you, let's assume that you're right, and then like monitor, right? Not assume that you're right, but just like, you know, take into account, here's are the things that we can actually prove that it's right or wrong, right? And then in the strategy doc, it said something to the effect of like, you know, instead of conforming to conventional norms. I was like, yes, this is my guy. This is my guy.
I mean, to me, that's a perfect example of how, you know, you literally go to sleep a human and wake up with AI.
That's a wrap for this episode of Wake Up with AI. We hope that you feel a little more inspired, a little more informed, and a whole lot more excited about how AI can augment your life and business. Always remember that this journey is just the beginning, and that we are right here with you every step of the way. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. You can also connect with us on social media to stay updated with all things AI. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and wake up with AI.